regarde un des moments où on se croit seul.
A new push for a European tinsel town, a cinematic journey to a childhood spent in the dying days of French colonial rule, and a Japanese master of photographic realism. That's all coming up in today's show. Well, Hollywood might occupy the top spot globally when it comes to film production, but France is hoping to be hot on its heels. During the recent Cannes Film Festival, French Culture Minister Rima Abdul Malak announced 500 million euros in funding to ensure the next major destination for film shoots. The industry is already very healthy, and new infrastructure could be coming to France soon. Antonia Kerrigan has more.
It's Hollywood à la française. In Martigues, it's one of the biggest film studios in France at 26,000 square metres. 10 different film sets, some with fixed decor for the filming of series. A courtroom, several hundred metres of prison, but to attract bigger foreign productions, Olivier Marchetti has made a high-tech investment. This 350 square metre LED screen is worth 2.5 million euros, but it can take the client wherever they need to go.
Here we're in Marseille, but just like that, we've teleported to Mount Kilimanjaro. And just like that, we're in the savannah, all that without moving. So it's eco-friendly and economical.
It's become a must for the streaming platforms, who are now much more prolific than their cinema counterparts.
Today, the streaming platforms are the ones in production mode. They don't have any cash flow issues, they don't have any storyline issues or any difficulty getting viewers. There's one really good project coming up, and we're competing with South Korea and Brazil for the contract. So the market really is global, and we need to be offering the maximum.
France currently boasts 60,000 square metres of studio space. That's set to double by 2030 because there's a filming boom, and every region wants in. Dordogne hosts around 15 shoots per year. This one is filming primarily outdoors, but will need studio access.
When they go into the tower, we'll have to cheat and reconstruct the interior in a studio because it's impossible to bring cameras inside.
And that will very soon be possible in the region, with 2 new film sets in the pipeline on a former tobacco factory site in Sala. Area 10 hectares, budget 13 million euros. Funded by state subsidies, a studio like this one will need trained professionals of all kinds to run it.
There's
already a hospitality school in Sala, so a short training module would suffice for these young people trained for working in restaurants to be able to work on film sets. The same applies for joiners, who could come and build sets, and for electricians. The list goes on.
And local authorities hope that bringing in more such projects could revitalise the local economy. The last big American production filmed in Dordogne brought in 10 million euros.
Now to a personal story and a journey back in time to the dying days of the French colonial presence in Madagascar. Director Robin Campillo has revisited his own childhood for his latest film, L'Île Rouge, or Red Island. This foray into the insular world of French soldiers and their families on a military base in the 1970s is also the portrait of a societal model in decline. Peter O'Brien has more.
Vous venez d'atterrir sur le plus bel endroit au monde. Bienvenue sur la base 180, le lieu de tous les plaisirs.
It's 1970, Madagascar, and a French family is living a balmy, sheltered life along with other expatriates on the military base of Ivato.
Tu me regardes dans des moments où on se croit seul, ou alors dans des moments où on n'a pas envie d'être regardé.
It's a life in which Madagascans are almost entirely absent, appearing only in the background. Madagascar became independent in 1960, but France only fully withdrew in 1972. Director Robin Campillo is drawing upon his memories of growing up there at the time, when hopes of an amicable relationship between France and its former colony had turned to dust.
The Madagascans shared this country with us, but we were imposed upon it, a bit like parasites. I wanted to talk about this pretense, this illusion that lasted 12 years.
Nadia Tereskovich plays the mother of the family.
The fact that my character is based on the director's mother created a strong sense of intimacy. I felt I needed to do the role justice, much more so than a normal role.
Eventually, their return to France becomes inevitable. Red Island comes 6 years after Campillo's previous film, Beats Per Minute, a drama about AIDS activism in 1990s France. That picture swept up 4 prizes at the Cannes Film Festival and 6 César Awards. Left out of selection at this year's Cannes, the director hopes his new film nevertheless moves audiences with its depiction of the end of an era in French history.
Now to one of the most celebrated Japanese photographers of the 20th century. An exhibition dedicated to the work of Ken Domon is currently showing at the Centre for Japanese Culture here in Paris. It shows every period of his multifaceted career, from war propaganda to a moving series on Hiroshima. There's also his fascination for ancient Buddhist temples. France 24's Valériane Gauthier and Nazreen Benzebuchi went to have a look, and Alison Sargent brings us this report.
He's hailed as the master of Japanese realism. Ken Domon spent decades capturing both scenes of daily life and moments of upheaval in 20th century Japan, approaching his subjects with sensitivity, all while dedicated to getting the perfect shot.
Ken Domon was called the Oni no Domon, the devil of photography, because when he wanted something in his shooting, he reached it in any way. He was able to ask to cut some trees to have the right shot. So he was a really severe person, but he had also a very childish, a very sweet part in his character.
Domon began his career in the 1930s as a photojournalist. He was 24 years old when he published his first reports documenting Japanese traditions. But not long after, Tokyo went to war, and he turned to propaganda.
In the construction of the image, we can easily identify the characteristics of propaganda. It's the perspective, an image taken from below, creating a sense of power, strength, and determination. There's also a sense of order. It's very constructed, reflecting the order of the Japanese army.
A pioneer of realism, Domon left a powerful impression with his series dedicated to Hiroshima. Time stood still at 8:15 a.m. on August 6, 1945, when the city was struck by an atomic bomb.
What defines his work on Hiroshima is its frankness and its willingness to show taboos. Here we see a family with a child. We see this man wounded by radiation. He's what we call a hibakusha, a survivor of the atomic bombing. It's not an image of death, of suffering, but more one of hope.
Domon also captured hope in the smiles of thousands of children. It was through their innocence that he documented the poverty in Japan's southern mining villages, where many children were orphaned and left to fend for themselves.
It's beautiful, touching, sometimes frightening. He shows reality.
Some images almost make you want to cry. They're so moving.
Inspired by sacred spaces, Ken Domon immortalized them throughout his life. Even after brain hemorrhages forced him to use a wheelchair, he insisted on returning to photograph these Buddhist temples through the end of his days. He said he saw similarities between the divine statues and human beings.
Its latticework facade shimmers above the port of Marseille, a perfect foil for the dazzling southern light and reflections from the turquoise sea nearby. The Musée Museum is celebrating 10 years as the city's landmark institution for Mediterranean arts, heritage and history. Established to highlight the city's links to other cultures, they're marking the first decade of exhibitions and events there with a festive weekend of performances on site. And finally, to a meeting of 2 other European museums, the Capo di Monte in Naples and the Louvre here in Paris. Home to one of Italy's most important collections, the Capodimonte has lent dozens of its prestigious pieces to the Parisian institution, artwork which includes 15th and 16th century painting from Bellini, Titian and El Greco, with drawings from Raphael and Michelangelo. Entitled Naples in Paris, those pieces will be dispersed around the Louvre in dialogue with the permanent collection, and we'll leave you with some of the highlights. Otherwise, do remember you can get more arts and culture on our website and on our social media feeds. If not, there's more news coming up on France 24 just after this.